got involved in it, or at least in the Children's Miracle Network Hospital organization. And Extra Life was created because I can't remember her name off the top of my head. I should have it like ingrained, like burnt into my head. But she was a girl who was diagnosed with a pretty aggressive strain of cancer. And a lot of her friends, a lot of her family members, and a group of gamers in her hometown got together to raise money for her. She eventually succumbed to her cancer, unfortunately, but that was kind of the spark that caused Extra Life to start getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it's a huge part of Children's Miracle Network. And you just game and raise money for sick kids. When you sign up for Extra Life, you can choose what hospital you play for out of all the Children's Miracle Network hospitals in the United States and Canada. There's teams very similar to like Twitch, or what are those called? You were just talking about it earlier before we started recording the communities.
Stream teams?
Yeah, like stream teams.
Okay.
Playing for different hospitals, and yeah, it's been a really cool community, because I think one of the reasons that I enjoy it so much is it's competitive, but it's not at the same time. It's like everyone's raising money for kids, but at the same time, you have that person who's like, hey, I've raised $2,000 for kids. And you're like, oh, that's amazing. And then you have that first time streamer who's like, well, I raised $200 for kids. That's amazing, because it's all going to an amazing cause. So people who can raise anything from $20 to $20,000 get the exact same enthusiasm, which is
awesome. For your Extra Life charity streams, what games do you typically like to play to try and raise the money for them?
Well, you try to keep at least the Extra Life streams relatively PG-13 at the very most, because kids may be watching. So for those games, I try and go for something. I try and go for, like, when I think of my childhood, I think of really whimsical stuff. I think of like movies like Hook, Secret of NIMH, things like that. So I try and play games with that kind of vibe to them, because it reminds me of, it kind of reminds me of my childhood, and maybe it's some of the greatest form of escapism.
Yeah.
So I play games like Moonlighter, and I always play games with really big stories. Like I tend to have a game that doesn't have a story that I just kind of spam as my turn off brain game. Like right now it's Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
But most of the games that I play is always based on storylines and storytelling. So getting a game that someone can just watch and kind of turn their brain off and just kind of get into it, that's the kind of games that I play.
Awesome. Keeping it PG. Remember, if he's streaming for Extra Life, keep your shit to yourself.
Well, the chat, I don't, try and regulate the chat or anything. I can only regulate myself. That's the same thing if we're doing Dead by Daylight, and with like Liquid or Z or other people, they tend to work in swear words like artists work in watercolors, to quote a Christmas Story. But I try and keep it relatively down. And I've said that as long as I've been on YouTube, because I actually don't swear in my YouTube videos either. And the reasoning that is, I had a friend of mine who told me that their like 7-year-old son watched me and really liked the videos, and actually I was doing a Minecraft series at the time, and she told me that he actually liked my videos more than what's his name, Diamond Minecart, which apparently is a really popular Minecraft streamer. So I kind of took that as a hint that I kind of had a responsibility. Like if I used to, like, even when I was reading text for games, I'd censor myself, and I've stopped doing that, because I think that's also kind of disrespectful to the author, or to the author of it, that if I'm gonna read something, I'm gonna read it the way they wrote it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But if I'm playing like an R-rated game and a kid watches that, well, that's what happens.
That's just today's society. That's just what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
I mean, you just need to adjust it.
That's why we all have mature on our streams.
Yes, I very much need mature on my stream.
I was like, even if I'm doing an Extra Life stream, I have that disclaimer up, because I think it's a good insurance policy.
Yeah.
You've covered yourself.
Yeah,
No,
I agree. Yeah, I have to have it up.
Abandon all hope, ye who enter here, kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I have to have that up too, even on our podcast here.
That's just because I'm in it, though. I mean,
I think we have it up.
I hope we've got it up. This should be this clear, because I'm Scottish. start swearing. Oh,
Hey,
Magni!
Magni, thanks for the follow. Even though you're just outside the door, thank you.
That's just creepy. I'm following you, but
He's
I'm
just
outside your door.
He's just in the other room.
Making predator sounds.
So your other charity that you stream for is One Up.
Yeah.
Now,
One Up
that's
on Cancer.
Yeah, that is a cancer stream. Can you elaborate a bit more on that too, and why you chose it?
Yeah, well, I said before that my mother passed away from cancer in 2013, and she had been a teacher for like 30 something years. My father had
Mhm.
passed away before that, and he had been a policeman and narcotics officer, and they had lived their lives, and they were in a decent financial state that they could handle, or at least my mother was at the time, that they could handle, or she could handle having to go through treatments and things of that nature. And one thing that really caught my attention after finding out just how much my mother had spent on cancer treatment is like, I couldn't imagine just someone just starting out with their lives or trying to get their lives in order, especially considering how horrible like student debt is now for a lot of people and things of that.
Yeah.
Like cancer would just completely not only destroy them financially or destroy them physically, but also destroy them financially as well.
Yes.
So when I was at PAX South a few years ago, I ran into One Up on Cancer, and they were just starting out, I believe, at the time, and they basically said we help pay people's bills, adults' bills when they're going through cancer treatment. And I was just like, I've got my charity for the kids, got my charity for the adults.
That's awesome. Now, with the charity for the adults, obviously the games are going to be a little bit more.
Yeah, it definitely can.
Adult-ish.
For sure.
So, everyone, if you can, get into his streams and help him out. Even if he's not streaming for charity, you can always do !kids and !1up.
Yeah.
And everything will come up for you.
And that's the thing. That's people. Craig and some of my other viewers have realized, especially if I am really focused on a game. Like the monitor that I usually use for playing games is the one like right in front of me now, and I have all of my notifications right there. If I'm really focused on something, I'm like, I've got to get past this. I got to get past this. They will purposely donate right then, and that's my first focus. So I'll be sitting there. I'm like, I got it. They'll and they have it timed perfectly. I don't know how they do it. But yeah, if it's any kind of game where they know they can mess me up.
So not only can you guys help some charities, you can also troll Wretch at the same time.
And I will take that trolling all day. I think there was one time we were playing Dead by Daylight, and someone donated when I was getting liquid off the hook. And when he saw me, he saw the animation of me taking him off the hook, so he stopped struggling, and I kind of went. I was like, "Oh, I not to," and I just hear. And I turned and like I was like, oh.
That's great. Now you live with Liquid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's an interesting character to listen to while you guys are all playing.
For sure, he's a good guy for sure.
So one of your favorite games to play is, I'm assuming right now, is Dead by Daylight.
For streaming, yeah, because that's the one that I can just like. You have to be in a particular mood to commit to a story-based game. You know, you have to have that attention span, like ready to go, off of cooldown. And but Dead by Daylight is just like, all right, I'm gonna run away from Michael Myers for an hour or two, kind of thing. It just kind of turn your brain off and just coast with it. So that and Tricky Towers are two games.
Yeah.
There are two games that I kind of just play. And right now I've actually been playing Puyo Puyo Tetris because I'm going to a huge tournament in March. Extra Life United. This is how I got involved in Extra Life, by the way. Interesting story. I had heard of Extra Life. I don't even remember where I first heard about it, in like 2016. And I signed up for it. That was going to raise about $200. I thought that was a realistic amount. That was the same year that I got divorced, and everything in my life kind of went topsy-turvy at that point. So that I completely forgot about Extra Life at that point, and I was in rebuild mode. You know? So in 2017, I decided, because my life was in a much better spot then, I was like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and commit to this. I'm going to get like, $500. I'll go for that. And just little by little, I started, chipping at that total. And then on Extra Life Game Day, which is in November, and it's like a 24-hour long thing, I was a moron. And I was just like, all right, I'm going to get 3 hours of sleep before I stream for 24 hours. And then I had forgotten that I'm not a young man anymore. I'm in my mid 30s now, and I felt every single year that day. And I passed out around 3 o'clock, and when I got back on, like that next morning, I was like, oh, I think it was a doctor from Illinois had donated like $250 and put me over my amount, which is something that I'll always remember. So I ended up raising like $560 for the hospital, and I was like, okay, good. I had some penance for last year when I committed for 200, couldn't get it, no worries. And I wanted to do something more for the kids hospital. So that year, that was when the big craze happened for the SNES Classic.
Okay.
And I was able to acquire 2 of them. One I handed off to my nephews for a Christmas present, and then the other one I had.
Those guys.
Yeah, I sat there and just sniped it on target. Yeah, sat there and sniped it on target for 3 hours, just refreshing until I was able to get it. And so the other one, and I was like, well, just to be blunt, I can play ROMs. It's not so. I contacted the children's hospital, and I was like, do you guys have like games or anything for like the kids to play? And they had some basic stuff, but they didn't have any video game systems for the kids to play in the children's hospital. So I was like, well, I have an SNES Classic. I know the games are dated, but the games are still really fun, and you don't have to worry about ratings or anything like that. So I'd like to go ahead and donate this to the children's hospital. And they were like, oh, that's amazing. And I was like, I also want to let you guys, I'm not sure who's in charge of this, but I raised some money for you guys during the Extra Life Game Day. I raised like $500 something, and she was just like, can we talk to you when you come here to donate the system? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I found out that the hospital had an event, and I don't want to go into I raised more money than the hospital did.
Oh,
okay.
And donated I was just trying to be nice, and they just looked at you as like, look, we need a rep to go to this Extra Life thing. Would you like to go? And I was like, okay. I haven't been, it's at Disney, and I was like, I've been to Disney since, I was like 10, but sure, we'll go. And went to Extra Life United and met some amazing people, and it changed my perspective. So I went from raising $500 that year for charity to raising over 5,000 this previous year.
Wow.
So it was a really amazing experience, and something that I'm looking to repeat this March as well. So yeah, it was good times.
Awesome. That's great.
That was amazing, man.
Speaking of Tetris, I saw Tetris VR today.
Oh, what? Did you?
Yeah, for PS4.
So what do you do? Do you literally just turn the stuff yourself and slam them down, or?
I don't know. I don't have a PS4. Too expensive for me. But
Gotcha.
I saw it today. I'm just like, now I want a PS4.
Because I know they have a new Tetris game out where it's all based on environments and music. So like everything shifts while you're playing, like the music and the visuals and everything.
Interesting.
And I thought about that for VR. Like that'd be so cool if you could just literally just twist them and slam them down, kind of thing.
That'd be sweet.
That'd be kind of cool.
But that's great. I don't know. It's weird that you raised more than the hospital did, but at the same time, that's a great feat.
To be fair, the reason why is the people who were in charge of the Children's Miracle Network Hospital branch of the hospital didn't really know. It was their first year doing it too. So and to be honest, I had a built-in audience. That was also very important.
Yeah.
The biggest obstacle that I found to fundraising here is that I'm here in the oil patch of West Texas, and you have tons of companies that are literally just drowning in money, and they don't want to donate money unless they can get a building named after them. Just to be blunt, it's literally, you can contact these people, and I'm not going to say what companies, but you can contact people and say, hey, I'm raising money to help out sick kids, and they'll look at you like, okay, what do we get out of it? The tax break isn't enough. They need status.
That's
so
ridiculous.
And that's the thing. That's the climate here with a lot of those big companies. I'm hoping to rectify that this year, because I'm kind of going on a letter writing campaign. But it's just one of those things that a dollar for Extra Life goes so far to helping out kids with their prescriptions and the medical costs to help their families out. $5,000 is a drop in the pan, for some of those companies. So I'm going to see if I can work the magic and see if they can help out. So that's the biggest challenge that I found here. And that was the problem with their stuff too, is they didn't have a built-in kind of geek audience, and I had a built-in audience from YouTube. So having the YouTube people like watch and come over to Twitch, for or at least a few of them, and start getting that ball rolling helped out a lot.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's great. I hope the letter campaign goes well for you.
Me too.
It's not easy writing that many letters.
Well, you can write one and then just like print it off and change the name, kinda.
Yeah, that's pretty. Dear Sir and/or Madam.
Yeah. To whom this may concern, give your money, or I'll hold you to a wall with a gun. Pepperjack, we're currently talking about Rich and his Extra Life fundraising and the amount of money that he's raised, and where he's planning to do and what he's planning to do within this year. I was going to say next year because it's still so close to last year, but
yeah,
this year.
Last year he raised, what was it, 5,000?
Think over $5,065 between Extra Life and One Up on Cancer.
That's amazing. I wish I had like a big cheer button where somebody would just cheer in the background.
Yeah, we gotta.
I need to get one of them for like the next time somebody like says something. I'm like, oh my god, cheer! Press the button.
Well, one of the coolest things that I've brought it up before during my streams is, like, all of that was raised by viewers. That's why it makes it kind of special to me.
Yeah.
Is that I have seen some Extra Lifers that are able to get companies to fork over very large sums of cash over the course of I remember one company I think donated 10,000 to someone. Wow. And that's great. That's amazing. But considering the situation that we have here, the fact that so many people have donated and that they were all viewers of my channel and just normal people, being able to donate what they can. For some reason, I think that means a little bit more to me personally. And it's the fact that it's people from Canada and across the United States. And we have donors from Ireland and Scotland and the UK and Germany, and all these people donating, just helping out sick kids. It's like borders didn't matter, politics didn't matter, religion, all this kind of stuff, it didn't matter. All it matters is like, oh, sick kids, bam, help. That's, it's enough to just chip away at a very, very cynical heart. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that. His heart grew 3 sizes that day. It shriveled back up, shortly afterward, but at least there was that one.
Pepperjack, thank you very much for the follow. Quickly just going to jump in, obviously, while someone's actually in the main of the screen, there is no alert box whatsoever, because, to put it bluntly, I'm more interested in what the person we're talking to has got to say than big pop-ups jumping in front of them. And I think yous are all the same, because the things that Rich is talking about are things that are actually quite important, and I think people need to hear and see what he's doing and the point he's trying to put across and the things that he's trying to do. So I'm trying not to take away from that by having huge pop-ups and alerts in the middle of the stream. So that's why you're not hearing any stream notifications when things are actually happening, but they're popping up in chat. So I'll just get that out of the way. Because Twitch, YouTube as well, but Twitch for me seems to be a really, really amazing community for something like this, because as you say, there is no boundaries, there's no walls up, someone's got a cause or a reason to be doing something. Someone else somewhere in the world has been in the same situation, and they've either felt it, tried it, or like tried to help someone. So there's always someone that's kind of been in the same situation, which is why a lot of people are really, really willing to help.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas you go to a big company, there's probably somebody in that company that's been in the same situation and would like to help, but then there's the guy or woman sitting at the top of that going, you know what, it's my money. What do I get out of this?
Yeah.
I don't really want to fork out if I don't get any. It's more like a social recognition they're
Mhm.
looking for rather than anything else, which is kind of ridiculous.
And it never hurts to ask, because the worst that'll happen is they'll say no.
No,
Like,
no.
what's the company gonna do? Like, come into the chat and start trolling you?
Yeah,
Like, we
no.
didn't give you money.
So what is it?
Yeah.
In the words of Family Guy, Sean Connery, 50 no's and a yes means yes. So
Yeah.
you just, if you're persistent enough and you just keep asking, eventually someone is going to turn around and say, you know what, we have been looking for this exact kind of thing. You fit what we're looking for. Boom, here you go. But you genuinely just need to try and ask and see what will happen.
Yeah, it's one of the things that keeps me going in terms of charity streaming is that quote, that very well-known quote from Wayne Gretzky: "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take."
Mhm.
So that kind of is something that I tend it's kind of the mantra when I'm doing that. It's like, worst comes to worst, they can say no. I'm going like, all right, thank you, move on.
Yeah.
Eventually,
Yeah.
someone will say yes.
Yeah, because it's the true to fact, there's someone out there going, right, we need to give charity money and let's go for, say, let's do it for the kids, let's put money in for sick kids. So they're looking for something, and at the same time you're looking for that as well. And without asking, you're never going to find this person, this person's, or this company or group of people are never going to find you. So it's just about getting more publicity for yourself out there, asking the questions, sending the letters, doing the streams. I mean, it's just...
I think that kind of the thing about the interesting thing that I have realized over 5 years of content creating on the internet has been, it's very interesting to see how diluted, or not necessarily diluted, actually the talent pool of, there are so many people who are talented and doing amazing things, but there's only so much screaming you can do to get yourself noticed, because everyone's screaming at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think we're going to be seeing a new a change in that kind of current culture, at least on the YouTube side, because a lot of people are starting to realize, you know, multi-channel networks aren't really worth joining anymore. Because back in the day, the multi-channel networks used to be, you know, the thing in order to make money and, you know, to do stuff on YouTube. And now, because of so many bad things that have been happening with multi-channel networks and people seeing that they really don't do anything other than take your money, most of them do. I think we're going to start seeing some more creative means in which people are going to be getting their messages out or getting their videos out. And, you know, they can do it the homegrown way. They can, you know, pay YouTube directly for that advertising if they want to go down that path. But I think the corporations kind of getting involved in it are starting to kind of taper down, which I think is a good thing. So, but that just, at that point though, it's also that personal responsibility that, you know, only you can really get your message out, and the people, and that's how I think is, like, I'm a perpetual pessimist about stuff. I'm pessimist, but I still have the will to keep doing it, because if you're a pessimist who's functional, you're never surprised when things go wrong, and you are legitimately overjoyed when things do. You know, and the people who are able to jump in and help out are such a blessing at that point, and such an amazing thing to have when they do show. I think you appreciate them a little bit more.
Definitely.
For example, like you guys giving me a forum to kind of talk about is an amazing thing. So thank you very much for that.
Well, you do a lot of good streams, and mostly for your charities. And we both thought you need to get a bit more exposure. I'm not gonna lie, we're not like this huge podcast or anything like that, but it's exposure, and you definitely deserve it because of
Well,
what you do.
it's one of the, I realize that the one thing that everyone has is time for the most
Mhm.
part. Some people have money, some people don't. One thing that most people have is time. And the fact that you guys took the time to talk to me, and the same thing, it's like people take time to watch you guys' channels, or people take time out of their day to watch my channel. That's something that I think a lot of people take for granted, is that that's like you're taking time to sit and watch someone do what they, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing that it's humbling, and it's something that I think you just have those people that, and I know to a point that you come to a point where if you have a ton of people, you can't read all the messages,
Hmm.
and that's going to suck if that
Yeah.
eventually happens.
Yeah.
But you do as much as you can to repay the people that helped you get there.
Oh no,
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
See, now I hope that our channel isn't bugging out and actually recording this.
No, it should be alright.
'Cause that needs to get out. That message definitely needs to get out there.
Just like, that's the saying. So it's like one of my favorite types of viewers actually are lurkers.
Oh no,
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
a lot of people nowadays are just like, you know what? Lurkers are the best.
Yeah, people used to sleep on lurkers, but I appreciate any person who takes the time to make it. I just have to find games that are engaging. That's the thing.
See, the thing is,
I got some good games are coming out this year though.
there is some good games, but the point, like, the thing that's hard to know, like for myself, is I like, same as you, I like a game with a good storyline, and
Mm-hmm.
getting like drawn into that story and discovering things and what's happening, and there's twists and there's turns and all that. There's no a lot. It's all about, here's another 100 people, here's a gun, jump right in and just start shooting everybody. That's kind of what it seems to be the basis of everything that's going on. I mean, like,
Those are the kinds of games that you want your brain to shut off, like
Yeah.
Dead by Daylight for Wretch. You just want to go and shoot things and
I mean, for instance,
That's a game you play with your mates.
What is it? Is it? Do you both remember PlanetSide?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're releasing a battle royale game. No,
Really?
yeah, they're
oh,
releasing.
okay. We have a question here.
Yeah.
Wretch, have you ever worked for charity collection / solicited for major charities, example St. Jude or March of Dimes?
No, I've never worked. The background that I had was I actually used to work for Texas Health and Human Services.
And what do
for a
they do?
while. They do the government assistance
Oh, okay.
primarily, to help out people, and it was a very, what's the word? Soul crushing, I think would probably be the most accurate term. Here, I tell this story. That is the only job that I ever just got up, gathered my things, and walked out. Like no
Wow.
notice, no anything. And here's this story. We were working the phones, and this woman called, and she was in El Paso, Texas, and she had 3 kids. She was raising them herself. Her husband had left her, and one of her kids had been diagnosed with cancer. Now, the good news is they caught it very early, and everything that they needed procedure-wise was covered under Children's Medicaid. So the kid was good. His chances were very high of getting the treatment that he needed and heading off something before it got really bad.
Mm-hmm.
She calls me and tells me that they went to the doctor for like a checkup or a treatment or something like that, and her entire Children's Medicaid benefits had been cut off, all of them.
Jesus.
Okay, for all 3 of her kids. Not only that, her food stamps had been cut off too. And I'm looking at her case, and there's nothing that I can see. Like the caseworkers had left no notice or anything like that as to why they did what they did, why they were canceled. So I'm looking at it, I was like, I can't figure out what this is going on. So I brought in a supervisor. Supervisor and me, we both look over it. We have no idea what's wrong. And finally, like the last thing you're supposed to do is actually call the state and talk to them directly. That's like a last ditch kind of thing, but we were completely stumped. So we got a hold of the caseworker, and they canceled out her benefits because she was 25 cents over the limit.
What?
That month, she had made a quarter over what the limit was, and they canceled everything, which means that she'd have to reapply for all of that, and there's up to a 90-day wait to get them reestablished. Okay, so this caseworker tells me that, and they say it so matter-of-factly, is, oh yeah, they were a quarter over the limit. And there's silence over the thing, and I completely lost all patience. I was like, you are taking the piss. And they're like, excuse me? And I was just like, they're a quarter. She's like, yes. Okay. So let me explain the situation to you, sir. And I explained the situation up to why, like, you need to reestablish. To which this guy replied, and this is a caseworker who's supposed to be taking care of people, who are downtrodden or going through this stuff, it is not my fault that the child contracted cancer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's not my problem. And I just went, all right, thanks. I just hung up the phone and got back with her. And I was like, all right, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to go ahead and file an appeal and file a complaint. I'm not supposed to tell you this, but a complaint is going to get things, because the state have to have that perfect record. The state can't have people actually complaining about them. That's why they have an appeal process. But if you complain, that's the thing that they have to have. That's the top priority. That has to be looked at first. So I wrote a book for her, explaining the situation, and got everything taken care of. She's crying on the phone to me saying, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I was like, you are very welcome. I hung up the phone, took off my headset, gathered all my stuff, and just walked out the door, because I could not keep on doing that.
Yeah.
That's also,
That's brutal.
I was threatened to get written up once because I had a woman calling me from Lubbock, Texas, bawling her eyes out that she hadn't eaten in 2 days, and there was no food banks. Because when you call, at least in Texas, it's how this, you have a number that you dial called 211, which is basically gives you a list of like government assistance places in your area. And I called 211 with her, and there's nothing, like in nothing, that no food banks whatsoever. So I get on Google and I find churches that have food banks, and I'm like, you need to go to this place, this place, this place. They're all like 5-minute walks from here. And she's like, oh God, I didn't even know that. Thank you so much. Hung up the phone. I got chewed out for it. It's that kind of thing. It's the machine. The machine's horrible.
Oh,
kind of thing.
Jesus.
And then I found, I'm glad I left when I did, because later that year, hurricanes hit Houston and flooded the city. All the people who worked at my place, they moved all those people over to crisis control. So all the people who would normally handled calls talking about customer service and helping out that stuff were literally getting calls that my children have drowned. Where do I take them? That kind of stuff. So
man.
I think I hit the escape hatch, like right before the Star Destroyer picked it up. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. So
yeah, holy crap.
But that's the situations like that is why I do what I do, is because I think, because you see so many people who need that system, but you also see so many people take advantage of that system, that private citizens being able to donate what they can, I think makes a lot more impact and helps out a lot more, kind of thing.
God.
So
that's just wow. That was a story.
I've had some sucky ass jobs, but my God, that sounds horrible.
But Pepperjack definitely agrees with your soul crushing. Um,
Yeah, soul crushing is the most
Description
accurate
there.
description. Yeah. Is that a solicitor? Oh, that just sucks.
yeah,
I'm just going to say that outright sucks.
yeah,
Mhm.
it does.
I cannot imagine that being any fun
Holy
whatsoever.
crap! All right, well,
Let's try and move on to something a little bit later.
yeah.
So
All right. Who are some of your favorite streamers that you constantly
So
like
who-
to go and check out? And
yeah, so who are your guilty pleasures? Who do you find yourself going? You know what? Oh, what such and such is streaming. I need to go watch.
besides Magic Dream, doesn't count.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
We all know that she's your favorite.
I would have to say, man, in terms of streaming, Good Boulderfist is someone that I watch because I watched him back from. I see so many people who did YouTube all the time are now streaming on Twitch
Mhm.
and just uploading their stuff onto YouTube now. So I kind of follow. I'm a creature of habit, so I've pretty much followed a lot of my YouTube people over here to Twitch. So I watch him, Milby Fool, who I believe is from Wales, and just I'm a browser kind of thing. Like it's the same thing with me in music. I don't really follow bands, but I like individual songs.
Okay.
So it just depends on the game. I'll watch them for a little bit, and then if they're watching, just kind of move on and find something else, and a cultural locust. You just kind of find what you want, take it, and then move on.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks, Pepperjack.
No, yeah, sure.
What's that?
All right,
He
the
says,
follower just
yeah,
called
we
back.
call people constantly saying, hey, you want to give money? No? You sure? You're really, really sure? All right, no problem. I'll just call you back. I'll just call back again tomorrow. Nice day.
Phew.
That sucks.
That's like soul crushing. Can you imagine being like
That's
just on the phone going,
condolences there, Pepperjack.
like you're on the phone going, who am I phoning? I'm phoning Bob again. Oh fuck, man. Get to the end of the week, it's like Friday, you're phoning Bob going, Bob, I know what the answer is, but
Get
wanna
to
get-
know him on a first name basis
Yeah,
after a
yeah.
while.
you're like, do you want to give me money, Bob? No. Okay, so how's your wife and kids?
Yeah.
Just progressed onto like.
Did Bobby pass that math test like we were talking about yesterday?
So what you got for lunch today? Oh, that sounds interesting. Right, I need to go phone Steve for Steve to give me the same answer, but I'll speak to you on Monday, right, Bob? Back, right, Bob, love you, bye, Bob.
You just need to find those. You need to find those people that are turned on by rejection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just need to find those people. Like, do you have a fetish for being told no? Then I've got the job for you.
Right. Oh, can you imagine the crazy, creepy people that would turn up to work? Oh man, can you imagine? Just a guy in a full-out gimp suit. Do you work here? Tell me that I don't. Tell me that I don't work here. No? Oh, you're doing it for me. You're like, oh.
So
I'm hearing a new Netflix series.
Netflix have just cashed in. Oh,
So,
man.
for your stream, whenever someone follows you, you use the Tron intro.
Yeah, for sure.
So what got you to pick that? Because Tron's great. I love Tron.
Yeah, I think it was a whole lot better than "Hey everyone, what's going on? It's your boy." The typical intro for that kind of stuff. I wanted something a little bit different, and my mind is gloriously stuck in the 80s and 90s because that's what I'm familiar with. I'm right out
That
of
is
like
what your Twitter says.
Ready Player One is like it's the
Such
book.
a good. Oh man.
The
So
book
good.
is amazing.
I don't think I've seen that movie yet. Actually.
If you like the movie, the book is 20 times.
No, I don't think I've seen the movie.
Oh, you haven't seen the movie? Oh,
No, I don't think
okay.
I've seen it yet.
You need to adjust
the
your
book?
life.
Yeah, it's
So
really
read
good.
the book first.
Yeah,
or-
read the book first because if you're disappointed with the movie, the book explains why you should be disappointed. The book says what's about to happen. Movies and TV shows and documentaries have been made about what happened. No one's got it right, so don't be mad at it. That's
Kind of
and I
like
was-
Game of Thrones.
yeah, pretty much.
Although they didn't do too bad.
But I grew up in a time where, like, here's the thing: my brother is 9 years older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in '83, and he had all the classic stuff. He had the die-cast Voltron, he had Castle Grayskull, he had all that stuff when he was young. And when he got old enough that he didn't want them anymore, and like all of the GI Joes, all of them.
There's more than
And-
one.
Yeah. Uh, the not like the GI Joe, the not like the 12-inch one, but like the little figures,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
based on the cartoon. But little funny segue. One of the things he had those, and he had the original Kenner Star Wars figures, the ones that are like worth tons of money now.
Mhm.
And what he would do, I grew up on a small ranch in northern in New Mexico, and he had this huge hill of red dirt, and he'd make giant forts out of this hill, and then he would make popsicle boxes, and he would wrap these figures up in tissue paper like mummies, and he'd bury them. It was just something that he did, and then he forgot where that hill was. So there's like tons of when I was a kid, I used to go out into this field with a shovel trying to find, Like, because I was like there's toys, there's toys. And like one day I found like the original Kenner Rancor that had the one that was like yay big, that was just out there in the middle of the field, and I was like, this is close. It's like an Indiana Jones movie, just without any excitement. Going out there, and I was eating I think it was my nephew's birthday. I was over at his house recently talking about that, and I just stopped and it's like, you know what I realized? And he's like, what? You wrapped up these action figures in like tissue paper and then buried them. And he's like, yeah, if Toy Story actually existed, you would be like the worst person ever. You'd be like a serial killer. Just burying these toys alive, just putting them down. And he just kind of sat there and he's like, I'm a monster. But when
monster.
yeah, you're a monster. But when I got old enough, he just took all of that stuff and handed it off to me. And at that point, like Brave Star and GI Joe and all that stuff was in syndication, so you'd watch it on cartoons all the time, and Saturday morning cartoons were still a big thing. So I was able to get involved in that stuff, and then get like Ninja Turtles and all that kind of stuff. So I had both an 80s and a 90s upbringing,
Yeah.
and tons of VHSs. So The Last Starfighter, Tron, of course, was a really big thing. And I think one of the primary reasons I use the Greetings program is it was probably one of the coolest things in the theater is when Tron Legacy came out. My brother and me took his 3 boys to go see the film. And when that first chord from the Daft Punk soundtrack, that da-na, and I looked over at them and they just had this wide eye. That was their Star Wars moment. You know what I mean? Like with kids who saw Star Wars for the first time, they were completely blown away from it. They were like 9 years old, 7 years old, and then they had that whoa, because they could actually realize what they were seeing. And I just thought that was so cool, and I thought the Greetings program was something unique, and
Yeah.
also kind of brings in a slight thing of community, because everyone's a program. Everyone's everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or a gal or anything like that. So I just thought it was something different. And after that movie, they just threw frisbees at each other nonstop for like 4 weeks, like throwing frisbees as hard as they could at each other until their mom put a stop to that. But yeah, it is something that I dug and I thought was different.
I love it when I come in and lurk you and I volunteered for de-resolution.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. There's not a whole lot. I just need to download that film and just start cutting stuff, little pieces from it to
Yeah.
put in for emotes and stuff.
It's definitely, especially for the lurk when you de-resolution.
It's one of those things. Like if I could have one arcade cabinet and one pinball machine in your house, like if you could choose like which one you'd have, I'm always torn between like the X-Men cabinet or the WWF Wrestling Challenge cabinet from back in the day, but I think I'd go for the old school Tron cabinet. And for the pinball machine, it would be like the Addams Family, because the Addams Family pinball machine was amazing. But those things those things are so expensive now.
Oh, definitely. Absolute
And
fortune.
why are you shaming me, Pepper Jack?
Because you've no read or seen Ready Player One. Gallagher cabinet all the way.
I'm a busy
Gallagher.
guy. What can
Paper
I say?
Jack jumping right in there.
I'll tell you what, if you're on a road trip or something, I strongly suggest getting like Ready Player One on Kindle or something and giving it a read. It's one of those films I actually read it once a year. It's
Unless those self-driving cars come out anytime soon, I'm not going to be able to read it on a road trip.
okay. Well, Will Wheaton did the Audible.
Yeah. No,
So-
I don't want to listen to his voice the whole time.
I was kind of disappointed. It was wrong, to tell you the God's honest truth. I was just kind of
If
like,
it was Morgan Freeman, I would.
Oh man, Morgan Freeman could talk about anything.
Yeah.
But I
If it
think
was
I'll.
Morgan Freeman, sure, but Will Wheaton, just stick to your.
That kind of reminds me that what's the name of the driving thing? Like the like when you're driving around, it'll actually talk to you and tell you which way you need to turn or
GPS.
yeah, it's like a GPS